I am now. Yeah. So here we are again talking about Dolmenwood. So Pittsburgh Pat here and Ryan Dole of the Verdigris Table.
Hey, everybody.
So check out his channel if you're on mine and vice versa. But yeah, so we had a really fun session. I like starting out with the highlights because
Hmm.
hook people watch the rest of the episode. You don't have to wait. But like, so my highlight was when the goblin licked the toad and then the ogre ate the toad. And the toad was in a bag that we were carrying around, the party was carrying around because the toad said something like betrayal.
Precisely.
And so we were like concerned that it was a spy or something. And so we threw it in a bag and then we were carrying around to figure out what we were gonna do with it. And we didn't have to figure it out because the ogre ate the toad and fait accompli. I didn't have to kill a small defenseless animal. But or presumably defenseless animal. I
I
don't
feel
know
like
if anything's
you were,
defenseless in here.
well, I was about to say you were neither are you. I would say your character was at least an accessory.
Yeah, well, definitely the player was because the first thing I
Oh,
thought of is that, see, so in a previous session, for those that weren't here, we met this kind of gatekeeper character. He was like a maitre d' at a wedding, basically, or I don't know. He was like checking the guest list at a wedding. So yeah, and
and
it
you
was
guys were not on it.
yeah, we weren't on it. So we had to eat a magic mushroom that he like had this sack of, and for his amusement, in order for us to be let in. And so when we got the toad thing, I thought of the remember the terrible, I don't know what, some kind of craze in the late '90s or something about kids licking toads or something. I don't know, some weird like.
It's I think you have to find the right toad, and if you find the wrong toad, it's real bad. And most of the time, it doesn't do anything, but
Yeah.
maybe you
So
get bacteria.
well, that was kind of like the mechanic you used for the goblin, like because we didn't know what we are going to get when we ate one of those mushrooms.
Mm.
Two of the effects were pretty bad. Well, I would say one was really bad. One was weirdly useful. I don't know. Like I guess it's how you look at it. But like I got a plus to my deck, so I was real happy with that.
You pulled the best one by
Yeah.
far. Yeah, it's just like, hey, +1 to an ability score. Roll a d6.
The
All right.
fighter got headlights for eyes and yeah, so that was pretty cool. So he's got like these beams of yellow light shooting out of his eyes constantly.
Which we didn't see. We haven't seen any drawbacks from because you have been dungeoneering. So it was like, sweet, we don't need to count turns for the torch anymore.
Right.
But I imagine there's plenty of circumstances where it would be inconvenient to have flashlights coming out of your eyeballs
Yeah, if you're walking to a
constantly.
dark tavern, trying to be like stealthy and observe the situation, and meanwhile your eyes are emitting like these intense beams of light. Yeah,
Yeah,
that could be bad.
you can't make eye contact with people anymore.
And then Mike has
Mm.
he has like 50 feet of hair growth. Like so.
And my man, we took last week off because I tried and failed to finish my Kickstarter project. So fucking close.
That's good. No,
But
it's important to do that though when the strike while the iron is hot.
yeah,
Otherwise
yeah,
you
yeah.
get inspiration.
Well, I've been striking this iron for a long time.
Right.
Inspiration that's why I've slowed it down. I spent my inspiration a long time ago, and now it's
It's work.
work. Yeah.
Right? Writing is work.
Writing is
People
work.
think, oh, I'm
Finishing
gonna
is
write
work.
a novel. Dude, I mean, I went to school for it and I wrote a novella, I would say, a short novel. And it was work. And people were always like, why don't you keep writing? I'm like, because it's work, man. Like it's
Yeah.
hard. Yeah.
It's hard. That's why not everybody does it. But so we hadn't sat down for 2 weeks, and he came out with a new mini, because
Yes.
he grew 10 feet of hair. All of his hair grew 10 feet. So he's
That
got
was
this
10
like
feet. Okay.
he's got this cousin it with a wizard hat thing from like I don't even know where, but he
Mike's
was like
really into miniatures. Yeah. He loves
yeah,
painting them and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's great.
but he's committed to the bit too. Like he's not just like you could go presumably you could go get a haircut. But
I
no,
think,
he's gonna stay this cousin it
yeah.
style, yeah, character.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody's settling into their characters. So this is the
Mm.
third session, and I feel
Hmm.
like there was some role play here. There were definitely some moments where I had a divisiveness between what my character wanted to do and what I as a meta gaming player would
Mm,
do.
mm-hmm.
And so I had to decide on, what, like, dude, my character wouldn't be on board with that, or and so that was pretty cool. There were moments, and that's the fun, I think, at the table where you realize that you're starting to play a part, you know. Not
That's the good
what
stuff.
would Pittsburgh Pat do? It's not that. It's like what would Clued do? That's the
Right.
name of my character.
He's trying to be a knight, man. You know that like he's got a
Yeah.
code of chivalry. There's a whole code of conduct that he's trying to follow. And this, so I should we've pretty much, I'd say, played through all of Winter's Daughter.
Winter's
Um,
Daughters. Okay, so let's give a shout out to the authors.
Gavin Newsom, Newsom. Hesitating
Sounds
on his last name,
sounds
but
right.
Necrotic Gnome, originally for old school essentials, but it was actually the first it was kind of the first official like Dolmenwood themed adventure. Perfect
Oh,
for
okay.
perfect for first level,
Yeah.
up to like 3, because like it's not like 5th edition, it's very bracketed. If I put a 3rd level character and a 1st level character together, someone's either bored or smoked. This
Right.
system has a little more flexibility with different levels in the same party.
Mhm.
Um, but it was very good. We rolled for combat once. There was only one conflict that
We
was like
finally played. Yeah, it was
straight up, these things are attacking you.
the first two sessions we didn't get any combat. We were
Hmm.
able to successfully avoid it. We almost did, but then we socialized our way out of it. And then yeah, this one we couldn't though. There was monsters, so you couldn't reason with the monsters. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
cool though. They popped out. So tell them about the monsters. That was pretty neat. The
Uh,
description was great.
Worm tongues. I get a tiny bit of credit, but like so much of it is just like baked in. It's just like just the right details. So worm tongue is the name of this thing. It's a 4-foot tongue that has like a little like lamprey eel mouth at the end of it. So yeah, I described it like scenting the air by like licking it, trying to like see you
Mhm.
guys because it doesn't have eyes. But yeah, you walked into its habitat and it popped out, and you burst into its habitat too. The
Yeah,
door
we
was
do.
stuck,
Yeah.
and you like exploded into this room. So they came out to see what was up, and
Yeah, it
they
was like this
defended their
hidden
territory.
study behind a
Mm.
tapestry. So Mike's character, the wizard, moves aside the tapestry and finds this old wooden, swollen shut, locked door. But we're like strangely strong characters. Like we're like
You guys rolled real well
yeah,
for
we're
your
like
stats.
15, 16, and 18 in strength. And so and as a reminder, those who didn't watch the first two episodes, and there are two more episodes, so go back and look at them. But it's it's like, you roll in order.
Mm.
So like you just rolled and then like, well, like that's your strength. Okay, well that's your dex. Well, that's your, charisma, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not like 5e where I was teaching this first session of the new after school D&D group yesterday at the one school where I work, and they were rolling their stats, and they were like, oh, I only have a blank in charisma, and I wanted to be a warlock. I'm like, yeah, well, that's the great thing about 5e is you can mix and match. You can
Hmm.
switch them. So you want your
Hmm.
strength to be low, you don't need a lot of strength to be a warlock. Why don't you switch the strength with the charisma triostat in there? And so one kid was relatively new, and he like caught on real fast. He was like, oh yeah, he's a real smart kid. And D&D tends to attract smart people, so compliment to the audience. But it's kind of true. And yeah, and so they were like catching on real quick. But we were talking about this after our session. Character creation in D&D 5e is not the simplest thing in the world,
Hmm.
especially for kids and especially for somebody who hasn't played a session or two. In Dolmenwood, it's pretty straightforward though. Like it's just like boom, 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 right?
And it's a lot of fun. So I
It
think
is fun.
what I arrived at yesterday was like I think character creation in both games actually is like a mini game, but in 5th edition you are trying to like one way or another you're trying to optimize. It's a dirty word in some circles, but like to a certain point you're trying to build the character
Yeah.
that you want. You're trying to make choices and construct a certain thing. And without understanding the rules of the game and the structures of play, it's a very challenging thing
Yeah,
to it's
you
there's a
could
lot of
handicap
decisions.
yourself.
You don't know what half of them mean or the consequences of them are. So it's the kind of thing where I always recommend, especially you're running for kids, handing out pre-gens. Even nobody likes it. No one takes this advice. Everyone wants to build a character, but like the first time you sit down to play, you shouldn't build a character. It's going to take you
Yeah,
2 hours. You're not going to understand what's going on.
yeah.
You're going to be bored and exhausted before the game even starts.
Uh,
You want to be a warlock? Here's a warlock. Hit the ground running. That was cool. You like it? Cool. Now go make your own. Now that you know
Yeah,
what warlocks are like and what these things mean and what's going on here, the difference between a save and an ability score and a skill, and yeah, a lot of numbers
yeah,
there.
that's the truth, and I think you're absolutely right. There's no doubt. And that's why I don't see, and I looked, any like great like 20-minute here's how you build a character videos on YouTube. They just
Hmm.
don't exist. They're all
Hmm.
like 4 or 5 parts, or they're an hour and a half long
Yep.
if they're complete, or there's some kind of junk teaser nonsense that doesn't really teach you how to build a character. It
Hmm.
just says like, oh, here are 5 classes, and here's this, and look at my pretty blue hair, and like, it doesn't have any content, and it's like, so anybody who's out there that can make one, there's a market for that. If you're out there on YouTube and you know how to make make this process, I've seen it broken down to like 7 steps, I think was
Hmm.
and then maybe 5 if you're not talking about equipment and things like that. But it's just not, it's hard to do. Like, have you ever tried to make one of those videos where you just like, here, create a
The,
character?
the first stuff I made, I was going to
Yeah,
do one for each character, and it took me forever to make.
yeah.
And they did okay. I mean, they did pretty good considering I
And
didn't know
people
what the
watch
hell I
them.
was doing. Yeah, but they were very long. They were very long, and it didn't feel it didn't feel like the place to start. It's the place everybody starts in fifth edition, but I don't think it should be. I think Paizo did a very good job of putting out one shots with pre-generated characters that
Mm.
like fit in. And that's in the starter. That's in the first starter set. No, they're
Hmm.
both the new beginner box has in fifth edition has pre-gen characters
This
too.
guy,
That guy has characters and kind of they do have tie-ins, but they're not that great.
right? And then
Same
I have
same goes
this.
for Stormwreck Isle.
Yeah, I don't. I have this guy, right?
Which one's that? The Essentials.
Essentials.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember that. I think that came with
It
pre-gens. It
came with.
should.
Yeah, it came with. I don't know if it came with pre-gens, but it came with
Came with the
an
sidekicks, that one.
Yeah, it did. It comes with these cards and little like figures, like, and that you can stand up, and that's pretty cool. And then it comes with an abbreviation of the rule set, which is nice. Although
Right.
that's available now as a PDF, right? So the what do you call
Yes.
it, RSV or
Yeah. And I have series of all those these 3 boxes I have tutorials walkthroughs on if you're thinking about running
cool.
them.
There you
And
go.
in those are links to all of the stuff you can get for free, which is most of the content you can get for free. In fact, Lost Mine of Phandelver, I don't say this in the video because the video is a couple of years old now, but Lost Mine of Phandelver, I believe is still available for free on D&D Beyond. They might have changed that since Shattered Obelisk came out now.
If it's not, I think I think you can buy a brand new like set on Amazon for $15 or something like that. And it
That's
does come with a
remarkably
set of
cheap.
dice,
Yeah.
like all 7 dice, and like, or actually it might come with 8. It might come with 2 D6 or something. Anyway, it's oh no, it comes with the 7 dice. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. So like it really is like a starter's set. Like if you're just starting from scratch, you don't have anything, like get one of those 2 things and you're gonna be good to
And
go.
hand out the pre-gens. If you're sitting down to play with your
Yeah.
friends and you want to start playing,
Yeah.
hand out those pieces of paper or let them choose, right? Who wants
Yeah.
to be the rogue, who wants to be the wizard.
Yeah.
But and then you go home, make a wizard. We'll see you next week. Um,
Right.
because it's a mini game in the sense that it takes time and it has rules and it's not that fun if you don't know the rules. Whereas in Dolmenwood, in old school essentials, but particularly in Dolmenwood, it's a mini game because it's fun and there's such a sense
Yeah.
of discovery and you're
Yeah.
you're finding out who this character is. It reveals itself. Now, if you come in, I want to play a warlock, you might be in trouble because your charisma sucks and you're stuck and it costs you more. You can't just switch them around.
Yeah.
There's like point buy, but you -2 to get one, and you can only go so far.
And
But it's more
you
fun
could
to
play a
have
really bad warlock though, which is kind of fun.
one, which is cool, right?
Right.
Because now you're
Yeah.
because maybe you like warlocks, you played three of them, you're going to make the same guy again, or you're going to one get shunted into like I'm going to make a hunter, which is like the ranger class in this game, or you're going to make a warlock who's bad at warlocking, right?
Right.
Can do those things, but now they have to compensate for their lack by doing other things, and now you've created a new interesting kind of character, and you're exploring more new, unique opportunities and situations. And that sense of discovery is what I love from emergent play like this. Like that frog, right? Like that frog was a random encounter that you pulled.
Yeah.
Um,
I think I like the idea of like characters that aren't optimized
mhm,
because there's so much more humor and
mhm,
and opportunity for growth and discovery. I was thinking of the Dungeons and Dragons movie Honor Among Thieves,
mhm,
where the wizard's like just doing prestidigitation tricks
mhm,
to con people out of money because that's pretty much what he can do, right? Like, and
mhm,
then he has the most difficult time trying to attune to the magic item that they need to like pull off the caper. And you know, that's fun. That was fun for me. That was interesting role playing. I thought like you didn't have to write the story that way. It could have just been like, the Jeremy Irons Dungeons and Dragons movie, which was just very straightforward adventure. You didn't have to have these kind of you know difficulties of character. And I think that's what's interesting for a player too, is that, here's what here's what Pat would do, but here's what Clued would do, like we were talking about earlier. It's like it's a big difference, right?
mhm, mhm. And I think that perspective is the difference between like mm, beginner and advanced even feels loaded. I'm trying to say this as
Mm,
neutral as possible, but there's like
experience.
experienced, right? Like
Somebody who's played a couple times before, right?
if especially if you've run the game a couple times, like when you first like I don't want to die, I want to win, like I want to save the world, whatever, like your motivation. And then in fifth edition, at least, you realize like, oh, that's kind of a foregone conclusion. If you make it to level 3, you are very difficult to kill, and if you do die, it's not the end, and whatever. The end. There's an ending written in the book. You know what's going to happen after you defeat the big bad evil guy or whatever.
Hmm.
Most of if you make it that far. But in this style of play, one, there is no, it's not this, here's a situation, there is no ending. The ending is up to you.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not easy mode. So you kind of are forced to have that separation from like you're you're the main actor, but you're also the audience, right? You're not just trying to win the game or like not lose the game. You're also trying to make it as entertaining as possible for yourself and the other people at the table. And then you get to like you can start to enjoy other people's turns way more instead of just sitting there waiting for your turn to make a big number. You can actually like sit back and enjoy the whole thing forming and then start to see the emergent properties of it if you're playing a system that allows that to happen, right? Like the dice say the frog shows up, the book says what the frog does. You, Nobody knows what that means until it goes a few steps, right? This frog comes down the stairs and says betrayal. I don't know what that means. Maybe Gavin knew what that meant, but I doubt it. And if he did, he didn't tell me because he wants it open ended so that the players can determine. And there was a couple minutes of like interesting conversation, like what does this mean? What do
Hmm.
we do? Do we walk away? Do we put it in a bag? We'll figure this out later. Are
Hmm.
we gonna fight it? Like poke it, see if it's gonna like is it poisonous? Is it gonna and then like yeah, I know someone who might like this frog.
Yeah, yeah, that we just tied right in. But I think you're right. Like so a couple things that happened in this adventure. So the fighter who ate the mushroom that gave him headlight eyes also decided that he was going to touch this slime that was like
Mm,
dripping from the ceiling in a room where there were two skeletons who were basically waltzing in the air
mhm,
around the room. And he suddenly became lighter than air.
mhm,
And drifted to the ceiling. So he was like, as soon as he touched it, it was like I thought of the Matrix where like
Mm.
Neo touches the mirror and then it gets sticky and then it rolls over. But it happened really fast according to the narration, and he just suddenly is this floating so he starts to figure out how to kind of like dance with these characters, but then he ends up being our like pack mule
Mm-hmm.
because he's so light. We can
Mm-hmm.
just load him with like all the stuff that we find in the dungeon and he can like run around with it. So an interesting mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but it was also very video gamey in the sense that like, okay, we're just gonna take everything. And I know the Dolmenwood is designed kind of to make that really difficult. There is encumbrance.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just like grab a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, I was lucky. I've been looking for a sword because one of the things my
Mm-hmm.
character rolled up, his weapon was like this 10-foot long jousting lance, and he's been carrying this thing around with him forever. And I think he's tired of carrying that thing around. I mean, it's just not convenient to go into doors and dungeons and other places with this as your principal weapon. Thank goodness he didn't have any real combat with it in close quarters. So now he found this really kick butt sword. It's like a +2 to hit, +2 to damage, which is big numbers,
At level 1, that's crazy. Yeah.
really big numbers in this game. I
Yeah.
mean, +1 in 5e is a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
but +2 in like old school D&D is like
Good
this. You're not
sword.
letting this thing go. Like you're not gonna let this thing out of your sight, you know. So
And it has an enchantment. It has a glamour on it that you have to target. You have to go after the biggest target.
right. And it
Because
has a
the
story behind that too, which is because
mm-hmm.
its primary owner was this guy who's now considered a saint. Um, and he Saint Chide, and he was like a principal character in the quest that we were doing, and he used it to kill a giant. So it makes perfect sense that that would have that enchantment on it. It's not just like some random, oh, you just like attacking really big things. It was like, no, there was probably like, okay, this is your role in this battle. You got to go get this guy. So we're going to make sure that happens, kind of thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's meaning behind it and consequences to it. It's not just like here's an interesting like this guy slayed a giant with this sword. It's cool. It's like this guy slayed a giant with this sword, and now you are compelled to go after a giant if you see one.
Right.
If it goes down, you're the guy who's going to go after the big guy. Um,
Which is perfect in keeping with the character that I'm playing, who is an
mm,
aspiring knight who's
mhm,
got 18 strength. He probably thinks he's probably in his experience, he's probably been one of the toughest guys in the room, so he would probably go after the toughest. And then he has that sense of honor too, where
mm,
he would want to protect his squad mates and say, no, I'll take on the biggest challenge, because that's what I do. Plus, he wants the glory as well. So it makes
right,
perfect
right,
sense. It
right.
just fits in.
It fits right in. It's
Yeah,
perfect.
it's great.
Um, yeah. So
Now,
I
yeah, good.
oops, excuse me.
Yeah.
Sally wants to be in this room.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Sally's
yeah.
your cat.
Dolly's my dog. You could
Your
mistake her.
dog. Oh, okay.
You could mistake her for a cat. But this is Dolly.
Oh, hey, Dolly.
Hey, everybody.
Awesome.
Dolly feels left out. She's on my lap half the time, but
Oh,
she won't perform for my videos, which I'm sure would help my views. But she
oh
will
yeah.
hang
Dog
out.
videos are big on YouTube.
Yes. I don't like to exploit her because we're partners. She's a silent partner. Forget what I was saying before the
We
dog
were
knocked
talking.
on the door.
Well, I know I was gonna say something about metagaming a little bit. So like
Hmm.
we were cleaning out the dungeon, that's a bit of meta. And then like we wanted to check all the boxes, I think, at the end. So like the wizard, who's played by Mike, he's like, we want there was a ring, okay, that was like really essential for two different quests. So we were trying to find a way as gamers to fulfill both quests, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think my character was just like, no, the right thing to do is to like leave this with this, couple. This represented their tie together over 600 years. and their love and that sort of thing. But the characters were like, the players are like, no, we need this. We need this for something else. So how can you give this to us? And we wasted a wish on it. A wish.
Ye-
And we are
Yeah,
like, okay, here's a wish. Okay, what do you want? We'll disenchant the ring so we can have it so we can get 5,000 gold from somebody else. And I thought, well,
yeah.
that was an interesting choice, but that was a player choice, so, and that's cool. I get it because we all want to get to level 2. But
I think you navigated it pretty well because you have, I mean, the adventure is very smart in giving you what is essentially an impossible choice, right?
right,
Like, I don't know who you're gonna like. There's two, maybe three competing factions that have desires. Like, they want you to do a very specific thing with this ring, and it's you can only
right.
you have to make a choice,
Yeah, this
which
wizard way back where who gave us the initial quest wants it.
yep.
But like all along the way, we meet this fairy princess who's like a snow elf, ice elf, or frost elf. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
And then her human lover, and they've been separated for 600 years, and the ring's on his corpse, and we have to go find the corpse, and then bring the ring back to her in order to reunite them. And in the meantime, there's another sting, which is that they're frost elves, and frost elves are mortal enemies of like humankind or the Dolmenwood. So we don't want them like coming and following us back and invading the lands that it took like 900 years to liberate, or 600
Yeah.
years to liberate, whatever.
And I love that open-ended complexity done well, right? It's not you learned a lot about the history of Dolmenwood, I think, but it came up organically because knowing those things was part of your decision-making process, right? And your characters would know this, but the players don't necessarily care about the what happened 1,000 years ago until they do, because it's relevant to
Right.
what they're looking at right now in front of them, and that is good adventure design, let alone storytelling. But I think you guys played it off well because you all expressed what your characters would want, right? Well, not pretending that you weren't also people sitting in a game store playing a game, right? But
Right.
like acknowledged what your characters would want and advocated for those outcomes, and then democratically decided what to do a few times. I watched it happen a few times because like
Mhm.
there's not like new dungeon when I was a younger dungeon master, I would feel like I'd have to intervene to keep things moving because
Mhm.
it can feel like the game has halted when everyone's sitting around the table trying to decide what to do next. That's that is the game. That is the game getting played. That's the good stuff, especially and if you're doing it right in character, that's like the best stuff sometimes.
Mhm.
So your character is chivalric squire knight want to be who's had dreams of this lady who has like given him this sacred quest as far as he knows to like come and like bring this ring to her. The fighter is a swindler, I think is the term. Is like his background, which kind of aligns nicely with certain play styles, is I get mine, get paid.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
know,
he's the
so he's
materialist.
just like, look, I
Absolutely.
don't, this Romeo and Juliet story is lovely, but this guy's gonna give us 5,000 gold pieces. I've never seen that much money. Like, we're bringing this back to town.
Right.
And the wizard was kind of conflicted because he's sympathetic to because you meet the ghost of the guy too, and he also wants you to bring this ring back through this gateway to his love to like let them be reunited. So the wizard wants to do that, but also wants to like be friends with a powerful wizard because that is like how he's going to advance and
Yeah.
learn spells and get like a bigger spell book and gain abilities. Um, so I mean, it's a wish, right? So you can do anything. The sky's the limit, really. I don't think that you wasted it because you kind of cut a Gordian knot. It was very,
Mm.
in my mind, it was going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to fulfill both objectives at the same
Mm.
time. And you
Mm.
figured out a way, presumably, it's not done. You haven't gotten back to Prigwort yet, but presumably you reunited the lovers, you got a wish and a bunch of treasure for doing that. And now you're walking away with the ring, which I don't know.
Walking.
I don't know how you would have done otherwise. Yeah.
So 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 that's the thing. I was like, look, so now we've got all this stuff, and we just found out our pack mule is gone,
Mm.
and we disenchanted. There was the Frost Princess used a dispel magic spell in order to just undo all the magic that was on the fighter. So now he has normal vision again and isn't lighter than air. So we're gonna have to carry all this stuff back with us, and it's not an unsubstantial amount of weight.
And it's not, I mean, this is in 5e to a degree a little bit, but they really lean into the like folkloric aspects of fairy. You go through the gate and you come back out, and the timelines are not necessarily the same. You're not necessarily moving at the same. You're entering a black hole. You're entering another dimension.
Mhm.
So the first time 4 hours passed, and you guys didn't really notice or feel it until you happen to look outside, and I was like, oh, here's a chance. It's afternoon, and you think it's morning.
Mhm.
The second time, you guys, I forget exactly, but you lost like a week of time in the middle of winter. So I rolled for it. I wasn't just going to be like the donkey's dead, but there was a clear possibility that like the donkey might not be there if you leave it tied to a tree in the middle of a creepy glade
Yeah.
in dead of winter for a week. So I said no more donkey, and now you have some decisions to make. We didn't fast forward to get you back to town because
No.
traveling is fun, but also because like you have to figure out how to carry, or what you can only carry so much. So what are you going
Right.
to take? Because you
Right.
have a full size mirror
Yeah.
that it was like one thing when you were going to we talked about strapping that to the back of the donkey. I don't know how many times.
Yeah. I don't know about how we're going to do
Uh,
what we're going to do with that thing.
so you got some choices to make,
But
or maybe
yeah,
it's a round trip. You got to go cash out, buy another donkey, come back, clear out the rest of this
yeah,
dungeon.
I mean, you have this problem in some video games where you can't fast travel if you're encumbered kind of thing. And, we're not going to be fast traveling. The whole point of this Dolmenwood, one of the major points, rather, is that it's a hex crawl, right? So you
Hmm.
have a bunch of old school Avalon Hill hex type map, right? Which is where D&D comes from wargaming. And you're going to investigate. And each one of those hexes has several things that you can investigate. And and that's part of the adventure. Um, we came upon the last time a goblin, I'm sorry, three goblins riding a giant snail drinking
A small giant snail.
small giant snail drinking some kind of wine. And that's the other thing, like substances are big in this. So like
Mm,
pipe weed has an effect, mushrooms have an effect, drinking has an effect. Would your brand of drink or type of drink has an effect.
hmm.
Um, food has an effect, that kind of thing. And it's so that's very interesting. It's very Alice in Wonderlandy
Everything is
in that
constant, like
sense.
fish, right? It's not just you know drugs, right? Drugs are in there, but like there's medicinal herbs, and then
Right.
there's very descriptive food, and there are like even some of the fish. You get the flavor and the sense, but like some of them have a little more to them than others.
Mhm.
So like everything just has like a little bit of extra detail to make it good and alive and like flavorful. I love Dolmenwood. I'm having run a full adventure now and done a full day in town and pretty much a full, not a full session, but like a good a good travel session. I feel like we've touched on all the pillars of play here, and they've all been, at least from the Dungeon Master side of things, very satisfying.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. You're having fun with this?
I am. I mean,
It's not clunky at all, or like
no, it's funny. There was I forget exactly what the situation was, but it's simpler in a lot of ways. It's rules light. So I think it might have been actually like the weightlessness thing. Like, what does that do to encumbrance? How much weight does it like? How do I not float anymore? And it's like, well, this is a physics problem, not a D&D problem, right? The answer's not in this book.
mm,
How much does we know how much he weighs. We can average, like we estimated back of the envelope how much the stuff he was. We're like, all right, a weapon is 5 pounds because the sword is like 2 or 3. This
mhm.
halberd is probably more. The lance is more than 5 pounds. So like, let's average it out. 5 pounds. Math is easy. You had, I forget what it was, 8 weapons. That's 40 pounds.
Yeah.
You weigh 130, you're still floating. You're now slightly encumbered. And my prerogative, right? Like my style, but also I think my job in a game like this is to make things as realistic as possible. So it's like, sure, the if you were a scale, right? You're still, the scales are tipping in your favor still, but like describe to me how you carry all these objects.
Right.
That
Right.
all right, we're gonna tie them all to him. I'm like, okay, you're a chandelier of weaponry that your
Exactly.
buddy's pulling, like that might complicate, and you have a mirror strapped to your back, like, and you're bouncing along the ceiling. I will let you do that, but I just want you to think about potential complications
The
to
mechanics of it.
to
Yeah.
that. Like, what does that mean if that's what's happening right now? If
Yeah.
you're hanging from the ceiling with a bunch of swords swinging off your belt.
I did look it up actually. So the German long sword, one-handed long sword,
Yeah.
you know, like that's used in HEMA, historical European martial arts, is usually between 2 and 3 pounds. And
Mm.
this Zweihander, right? So the two-handed
Mm-hmm.
sucker is between like 5 and not quite 10, like 5 to 9 pounds
Say that again, because
equivalent.
there's
Zweihander or something like
Zweihander.
that.
Yeah. Because there's a RPG.
Yeah.
There's that. But yeah, I don't think I've ever said that out loud. I got to call my German buddy actually. So
Oh yeah,
I got to phone a friend.
there's probably an umlaut in there that I'm mispronouncing or something like that.
Yeah, well, I wasn't correcting you.
Zweihander.
I was curious. Yeah, I have no idea.
But yeah, it's yeah, that's literally means two-handed. But so it's a great sword. But they're yeah. And then I looked up for some reason like what's the heaviest sword that was ever like really
Mm-hmm.
used. And I
Mm-hmm.
guess there is like an 80-pound sword out there. So
Jeez.
I don't know what, yeah, I didn't get into the details of that, but like, so somebody forged one, but like, yeah, but like for everyday use. So when you think about it, 2 to 3 pounds carrying that around, that's not that big a deal. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
5 to 10 pounds, you start swinging 5 to 10 pound weights around. I don't know. Even if you're just doing like kettlebells or something, like eventually you're going to get tired.
Right, because you think, oh, 5 pounds
Yeah.
isn't a lot, but you're doing this
At
for
extension. Yeah.
a long time. Yeah,
Right.
it'll add up.
Well, even if you're carrying 5 pounds of groceries home from the store, you know, 10 minutes, not a big deal. 20 minutes, it's a little annoying.
Mm-hmm.
30 minutes to an hour, you're probably going to switch arms, take a break. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to just like, it's not inconsequential. Like it's noticeable,
Yeah.
if you're holding it in an arm. If you put it on your back, like if you're Geralt and you put it on your back, it's a backpack. It's not a big deal. You don't even notice after a while. But if you're carrying it, and that's what you were saying about with our floating blimp, like Arsenal with the headlights, fighter, he's going to notice this. Like this is going to be noticeable. It's going to be noticeable to anything that interacts with them. In fact, when we go back to the wedding, we went back to the wedding, which has been eagerly awaited by the frost elves for 600 years. It's like this never ending party. And he walks in, you had everybody clap.
Yes. Well, they were impressed the first time with the wizard's hair. One of the, because they're like the most annoying kinds of like noble character you can imagine. I did my best to make them like repugnant. But like, oh, where do you get your haircut? I need to know. Like, but yeah, the second time he walks in carrying the fighter like a Macy's Day float. He's got him tied to a rope and he floats in, and there's beams of light coming out of his eyes. Although I realize now that he had the beams of light coming out of his eyes the first time. I don't think I really had processed that.
Mm,
But
yeah, he had.
it's a whole different thing when you're a spotlight coming down.
Yeah.
So yeah, they polite golf clap through the cocktail party.
They're just
Um,
so bored that anything new and interesting is,
mhm.
it's thank you for relieving the boredom for just a moment.
Yeah. And it's been good. It is always interesting challenge to be like, all right, this thing is totally different and incomprehensible. How do you gain the perspective of like an immortal being that's been at a cocktail party for centuries? Like, what is that like? I was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
right. I mean,
yeah.
like, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, with DMing or even like any game, but role playing games. Like we were there at that table. I don't think I got out of my chair except when I dropped a die on the floor for 3 hours,
Mm,
and I was completely entertained. Like there was not a moment where I was like, I wish this would move on a little bit faster, or like I think what happens to me as a DM a lot of times I'm so hyper concerned with the players having a great experience that, like you said, I tend to try to fill any quiet or
mm,
less intense moments with something. And that's not always necessary, right? Sometimes it's okay for the players to process what's going on, and then, and then economy of action at the table too. Like sometimes I'll as a player, I'll get self-conscious about trying to take over the narrative, like my character doing too much, and it's like, okay, maybe he should just shut up and sit out for a second or two, and I'll wait till my partners in crime see what they're up to.
yeah, it took me a long time to get comfortable enough to learn to like embrace those gaps and silences because you do feel responsible for every moment as the game master. Um, and I think you've walked into an established table, but I do try to front load it with like announcing my style and like I like the players to have a little more control. That doesn't mean, homebrew a subclass and
Right,
I'll let you use whatever spells you want. It means like you are driving the action because a very railroady style of game and like sometimes you need that, especially like you're running for children or you're running Adventures League or you're running Adventures League for a young group. Like there's it's not good or bad, but I like a style of like let's find out what happens together, and that actually makes it a more fun experience for me, and it lets the players control to a degree more of the tone of things.
right,
You need
right,
agreement. You need the right mix of players, and that's not even just like everyone's got to be at a decent level of like comfort and experience. It's also like an alignment of goals. If you want to
oh,
run something gritty and real, and this guy wants Monty Python, there's a fun middle ground that I like to
right,
occupy. But
right.
you got
Or
to,
like I have one friend who's really into eldritch horror, and so whenever like she creates a character, she's got some kind of weird like uh you know physical
mm,
aberration or something crazy going on like in her backstory, that sort of thing. And that's cool. That's just not, it's not my cup of tea, but like, yeah, like, cool, I'm cool with it. You want to color your character that way, that's totally fine. But I'm not like, oh yeah, that's so Lovecraftian, like I remember when, this short story, blah blah blah, because I just don't have that. But she has a great, she reads those kinds of stories, so that tickles her, fancy. So for me, I'm more of the epic quest kind of hero's journey kind of thing.
mm.
But that's just because that's the predominantly what I've read, like, so. And then
Yeah,
I,
you like what you like, and you don't have to
yeah,
apologize for it. I'm
yeah,
a weird bird because I like give me the variety pack, right? Like my tonight I'm running Shattered Obelisk, and we're pretty deep into it now, and that's very Cthulhu. It's just like you roll. I spiced it up a little bit, but like you roll for the consequences of dealing with these far realm energies, and someone's got a tentacle, and someone's got these like bony protrusions growing out of them. Everybody's hearing voices of one flavor or another by now.
mm.
All sorts of weird eldritch body horror
Oh,
things
she'd
are
like
in
that.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's good, but I really like it in a concentrated right amount where it's like this is the
yeah.
story we're telling.
Well,
If we injected that into Dolmenwood, it would
it
be
wouldn't really,
more. It would I could like whimsy it up and make it different, but
yeah.
it's not the
Dolmenwood's
same.
more like, yeah, more classic, high medieval fantasy, sort of thing going on. It's what I'm getting the feel. At least that's what I've experienced so far.
And it's the real classic. It's not like sometimes when you say that, like some people will think of like Disneyfied versions of like these like fairy tales or whatever, but like no,
It's
this is
more
the
like Back to Grimm.
back to Grimm. This is the old,
Mhm.
you know, don't
Yeah.
don't truck
Hansel and
with the
Gretel
Fae.
got Hansel and Gretel get eaten.
Yes.
Yeah.
Handsome. And
Yeah,
it
they don't
sounds
push the
cool.
wood. They they don't push the witch into the stove, or the woodcutter doesn't come and you know kill the big bad wolf like grandma gets eaten by the wolf. Like it's, or there's potential for it anyway. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way.
There's a house made of candy in the woods, and it's terrifying. Like that's the
Mm-hmm.
like fantastical, like dark fantasy without it being like edgy, like
Yeah,
modern dark, right? It's not like rough Batman. It's like it's like that magical realism, right? Like this is the world that we live in.
yeah,
Everybody knows if you go to the Feywild, you don't eat the food without risking it being the best thing that you've ever tasted, and anything in the mortal realm now turns to ash in your mouth, and you can never experience joy again unless you're eating the fairy fruit and drinking the fairy wine. Um, Everybody knows that, whatever, and everybody knows it might rain on Thursday. Like it's
right.
just it's just the
It's just a
same
fact.
category.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. No, it's neat though that he picks different things from different intellectual properties kind of accentuate, which I think I really like that. There's a sprinkling of everything in here.
I know I'm missing stuff. I kind of enjoy
But
that
you laughed
because
at a couple of my references. I forget what it was. There was something we did. Well, we made a couple we were talking about Indiana. You guys were talking about Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and then we made a couple analogies to that. But there was something that I threw out there, and you picked up on it right away.
we had a Ghostbusters moment. We had
Yeah, we were talking about Ghostbusters because there were two dogs that were guarding this door, and so we were
oh
talking about
yes.
how they were like you know, in Ghostbusters when Rick Moranis's character and Sigourney Weaver's character get transformed by ghosts or whatever magical energy into the
The
beasts.
gargoyle dogs.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah,
was like, I need you to know that these are not just dogs. He was like, oh yeah, a dog could like screw you up if it bit you. It's like, yes, but this is a 6 foot stylized statue of a dog
bear dog.
that like
Like
I'm not going to tell you it could animate, but it's chained to this door. It might animate.
yeah, and
uh,
we had to find out their names and ask for entry basically, and so we did. That was pretty cool. That was
that
really neat.
that was yes, because you got the first clue, which was harder to find, I think, was in that
Yeah,
like
it was
treasure
underneath a
box,
treasure box underneath a loose
a
tile
loose
in
a
the
loose
floor
flagstone. Yeah.
behind a swollen locked door,
Hmm.
not guarded, but which had the room had been inhabited by two monsters we had to defeat. And there was no guarantee we were going to defeat them. Like
Hmm.
the one got a bite in and screwed me up at 3 damage. Fortunately, I have 8, and that's huge, I guess, in first level characters.
You're the tank. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like if the wizard would have got bitten, goodbye, wizard.
And it was persistent damage. It was 1 point of acid every round until you washed it off. So if you
Right.
hadn't, uh, the wizard burnt his spell. He's got one. He's got one. He's got one spell he can cast a day. And
Yeah.
he wakes up and picks it out which one it's going to be, and he used his spell and dispatched. You dispatched the first one with your sweet new +2 sword, and he dispatched the second with Ion in the comments. I don't know if you could
Tell
phonetically
us how to
spell out
pronounce IOU.
Ion. I think it's Ioun
Yeah.
stone.
Yeah.
And it was like Ioun shard or something. It was some like stylized version of like magic missile that has like a couple extra little elements to it. But yeah, if that fight took longer, you would have automatically taken more damage, let alone, if another attack hit from
Yeah. If
their side.
anything else had come out of the woodwork, the damage would have accumulated because there's 1 point of acid damage each round. But then, so that we got that clue, and then the second clue, we just asked the ghosts. But we rolled really
Mm.
high on our. Do we have to roll for that? I forget.
I made you roll for that.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I'm rolling a reaction roll the first
Mm.
time you interact with an NPC. Like, what is their temperament towards you starting from 0, right? And that's what I did the first time you encountered them. But this, I believe, was your fourth or maybe fifth interaction. So there's like a backlog of relationship here. So you've already like advanced the clock. Your floating friend actually danced with them, which was the one
Right.
thing, the only thing they wanted and cared about, and like ignored you every other. Like you've asked them other questions before, and they were just ignoring you because they were not interested in anything but dancing. But this time, yeah, you've had developed a relationship with them, so I let you control your fate and roll under your charisma, which is quite high for your character. So you had a pretty good, I think you had like a 75-80% chance of success there.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah,
and
that
yeah,
was
so
that's
you
neat.
got the second clue a different way than what was written in the book, and that's okay. That's the adaptability is important for allowing the players to control their fate a little bit. It can't just be by the book. I think there's a lot of like shell shocked players out there that are trying to like, what's the one answer here?
Not algebra.
What's
Yeah.
the button I have to push to solve this test to advance to the next room or whatever? Um,
Yeah.
and and that's not even like bad DMing so much as bad adventure design some of the time. Um,
Yeah. I mean, puzzles are that way. And that's why puzzles are so difficult, I think, to run because, I like to have the characters come up with a solution that I had not anticipated. I
mhm,
love when that happens. So,
mhm,
but also kind of a secret to anybody that like plays in any of my games, if I'm the DM, I almost always have a non-combat solution. Uh,
mm,
I just almost always, because I just think that's, I don't know, it breaks the murder hobo stereotype, and it allows for characters to play their character, and I enjoy that so much. However, most D&D 5e eventually players don't even try. They're just
yeah.
like, hey, I have a sword. I'm going to use this thing all the time, and it's like, okay, fine. These poor kobolds are doing something totally unrelated to you, but they're kobolds and I have a sword, so they're dead. And it's like, okay, that's fine. It's not logical, but it's totally fine.
And it's built in, right? Like
Yes.
as much as
They
you like
stress the mechanics of combat so much that you need to, you know what I mean? It's
yeah, murder hobo is a thing. There are people out there who are that, but the system also rewards that style and leans towards it. This is a game about three things equally, and this one has one page, and this one has three, and this one has the other 180.
mm,
Combat is the default, and
mm-hmm,
that's not necessarily a bad thing,
mm-mm.
but it's an unclear thing. It's almost like a deceptive thing. They pretend it's about these three things, but there's again, that's why I like started this Dolmenwood campaign because it's so much exploration, which is what I love and miss. So like add to 5e with through mechanical means and narrative means. Like I am injecting so much exploration into fifth edition to get it so that it's 10% of the game,
Yeah, that
15% of the game.
this is the exercise. I mean, I'm really enjoying the game, but I'm really learning a lot, and I'm going to be able to at some point, I hope, uh, translate this over to my other RPGs so that I can have more exploration because
And that's deeply gratifying to hear, because
yeah.
I'm not doing this is not instructional, right? And I don't, what I consider us peers, right? I'm not running a beginner's table this time on Tuesdays.
Mhm.
And yeah, just like hearing, because I do my best. I feel like if I'm having a good time, the players are having a good time most of the time.
Mhm.
Sometimes because I'm not a sadist, right? Some tables
Right,
maybe that's
right.
not
You're
the
not
case.
just trying to kill the
It's like,
players. Yeah.
they're in trouble now.
Mhm.
Because that's also not because I know I also can win the game. Like there's no that's not
Yeah. You can
there's no
always break the game as the
strategy. I can
DM.
yes, it's right there. Um Rocks fall, everybody dies. Boring. So yeah, just to hear that you were in it the whole time in a crowded space. We're playing in a public forum where
Mhm.
there's a very successful group running a very boisterous party game. There's 20 people 20 feet from us who like periodically crescendo into this like very loud. So like it's intrusive. We're not in a sensory deprivation tank
Yeah,
or
yeah, it's not a
it's
sound stage with voice actors and mood
yeah.
lighting and Vin Diesel, and yeah, it's an open space. Although we found a nice corner. So
Hmm.
we're kind of like isolated. We don't have people walking past the table much. We had one person kind of like come by and wave once, but other than that, we're there. People can see us. They see what we're doing,
Hmm.
and they for the most part, just respect that privacy. And but it's also cool to see like other people, having fun there too, because it's great to see Phil have success, the owner,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it's great to, you know, it's great that there's a space where you can do multiple things at the same,
Yes.
simultaneously.
Go support your friendly local game shop. And that could be buying a $60 book, that could be buying a $2 soda and talking shop for who knows how long. I could
Yeah.
I could talk to him for hours.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm
He's
like
a
very
talker.
selective now. I say hi and like keep walking most of the time because it's like, do I have 2 hours to kill? No, I have to prep. I have to run a game right now.
Right. Right.
But it's there are so few third places out there. And if you don't know what that means, look it up because
Dude, that just came up on Monday. So we were talking about this
it's just
on Monday. I play at Star Wars Unlimited at the same game store,
mm,
Game Masters, pgh.com. Uh, Shout out to Phil. And yeah, it's we somebody else brought that up about third spaces, and I was
mhm.
like, I guess this is my third space. It's probably where I spend the most amount of time outside of my house, and even the nature of my work. If I say this chair is probably my workspace, right?
I feel
But
with you, yes.
yeah, so it's kind of that. I mean, there are, places where I physically go to do work, but occasionally. But yeah, that would be my third space, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, your job is your second space, right? So it's
right.
home, work, and you need a third thing. And like the
Right.
default is like the bar, right? But like
Right.
a lot of us have developed a different relationship with alcohol where I don't want to go, I don't want to go drink 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week. There's nothing wrong with that. I'll drink one night a week or
Yeah, it was
at this
fine in
point
my
one.
20s, 30s, even part of my 40s, but it's
Yeah.
just not part of the dietary
Right. I have
regimen anymore.
other
Because
priorities.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I just lost 27 pounds. I'm not gonna go put empty calories in me to like undo that. That was 100 days of work, like
Hmm. Hmm.
let's uh
That's
let's
good
watch
for
it.
you.
Actually, it was funny because I even told my wife last night at one point, Bertram put out a box of Girl Scout cookies, which they're one of my,
Mm.
I mean, Thin Mints and Samoas are my two favorites. These were Samoas. They were the real ones. They weren't like the knockoffs you can get at Aldi, which are still good.
Don't
But
hate. Yeah, love Aldi.
but it
Sponsor
yeah,
us.
yeah. But at the speaking of German stuff, yeah.
Mhm.
The at the, yeah, at that point in the adventure, we had found these magic wafers.
Hmm. Hmm.
They were to restore hit points, and so I was like, well, I should probably have one of these cookies because, and then
It's what
fought
my character would do.
I fought through the temptation.
Yeah, I'll have my fantasy Eucharist
Yeah, yeah.
instead.
Like, said I'll munch on this carrot.
Good for you. Good
But
job.
it was all right. So yeah, so but no, you're right. So it's great to have those kinds of, and thank God that well, thank Phil that he offers that, And I know he's running a business, but like I don't know, sometimes people don't know the service that they provide, like they just don't,
Mhm.
they're not
Mhm.
aware of how valuable that sort of thing is,
Well,
because
it's a community, and that
yeah.
is easily undervalued, right? Because it's not easily monetized. But like I have relationships with people that I would not have otherwise. Like I
Hmm.
don't know. I mean, we connected outside of that, but like
Hmm.
we have grown much closer because we spend time there.
Hmm.
This is happening because that happened last night, and it cost $5. Right?
Hmm.
I'm renting a table for $5 for 4 hours, and we could be there for 8 if we wanted to.
That's right.
Yeah, it's amazing. So if you have the opportunity, don't take it for granted. There's a lot of people who can't. We can drive. Well, you're right around the block practically. But within 10 minutes, I can go to a game shop. Like I know a lot of people in other places can't do that. They don't.
Sure.
They could drive an hour to one. Um,
Yep. Yep.
so
And we
if you
have like at least
can try.
two, three that I know of that are within, 10, 15 minutes. And you spread that out to a half hour drive and there's probably 10. So
Pittsburgh is there's a lot. It's a game town. It's a lot of game shops. There's a lot of game shops here, which and like comic book shops and like pinball is huge in Pittsburgh. Like
yeah,
yeah,
there's a league here. Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
There's
There
a
was
lot
a
of cool stuff.
convention for a while called Replay FX. That's sort of like the pandemic quashed that. I don't know if
Mm.
that's coming back. Pittsburgh Gaming Expo, that was fun. That's where we met.
Yeah.
Um, And then there's D&D that goes on at TechoCon. There's role-playing games that are done there. Um, that's coming up in July. There's Three Rivers uh gaming. What is it? Three Rivers Con. I don't know if there's active role playing there. It's a little bit small. It's pretty small, or it was last year. I'll have to check that. I'll have to look at that. But like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff. And then if you go up to small towns outside of Pittsburgh, like Butler has one once a year where they're always looking for DMs to volunteer for. Um, yeah, so my level of awareness is growing as well. So there's a lot of this stuff that's been here, and I was just
Mhm.
too busy because I worked nights for a long time that I just couldn't go to these things, so I didn't investigate them. But there was even a LARPing thing about 2 weekends ago at a pig farm
Hmm.
where you can
Hmm.
adopt a pig. They're like it's a pig rescue like place
Okay.
up in Tarentum, and they had a LARPing festival. And I thought, well, that would be really fun, but my wife and I had something else to do that day. But yeah, so there's another one which does involve drinking. It's like a dinner party, but it's a really ornate dinner party. It's limited to a couple hundred guests. That's also in that section of town. It's at a hotel, and people get like they cosplay, like they get
Hmm.
really dressed up in their formal like attire. So
Hmm.
and then it's a big like party all night kind of thing, I think. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on. And and we're actively a part of it. I mean, like, like YouTube channels like this, games that meet, on a regular basis, like this stuff's happening, man.
Yeah, and it's deeply gratifying to like feel like you are facilitating that to some degree, right? And like every game master is doing that. Every game master is sitting down and bringing people together. It's a innate good service that you're providing for people.
Yeah.
So if you have never done it, do it because it's not as hard as it looks. You get better the more you do it, and it is deeply rewarding. It is like two steps away from charity and
Yeah.
more fun
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
like service work, any kind of service work, it enriches you too. Like you put
yes,
the hours in, but then when you get something out of it, and you get somebody that comes up and says, "Hey, I really like that way you described that room," and you're
mm.
like, "Oh, cool, thanks." Like that feels good. You know.
And you just get such like a deeper experience of the game, right? One, you get to spend more time doing it, right? Like I'm always running a background process now of like, well, if they do this, I'll do that, and like, what does this mean if that happens? And so I'm playing. You get to play more D&D basically. You carry it around with you, but like you see behind the curtain, right? And it doesn't.
Yeah.
So sometimes you don't want to see how the sausage is made, but like you are interested and curious about like you guys did a very good job exploring. You found a lot. You found most everything, but you didn't find everything.
Right.
There's always something left on the table from the player side, and the game master knows all, and makes up even more. So it's for so many reasons it's such a fun thing to do. And as much as sometimes there is loud shit going on when I'm trying to create a cinematic dramatic moment and everyone's like ah! Two
Yeah.
tables over, and I'm like, man, if this was my dining room table, I could have a soundtrack going right now. I could
Right.
like perfectly
I
curate
thought
it.
about that. I thought
uh,
about adding music. There is one DM that I I've seen incorporate that, and some people really like it, and other people find it distracting.
I used to do it a
So
lot.
yeah,
When I first started running online, I did it a lot. And there was a software change actually that was a big part of it, but it was a little distracting because it's like one more thing. I like to run a very analog simple game. Like, right, I'm bringing my laptop now because there's a TV, so I have an HDMI cable to the thing, but like I put the map up there. I think I put two images up.
yeah,
Like I don't want it to be a video game. I want you to be in your imagination more than outside of yourself interacting with something. I enjoy minis, I enjoy terrain, enjoy cool graphics, but like my preference is the old vinyl mat with a magic marker on it and like moving minis around.
there's a great meme that I liked. It was this this just basically like a piece of graph paper with some pencil marks on it and like maybe a couple little dice or something on it. It's like this is what was on the table, but
Mhm.
this is what we saw, and it's just this epic like painting of
Yes.
a battle scene, and it's like it's the imagination. It's amazing how much you can inspire. And it's collective, and it's great because for everybody at that table, everybody saw something differently in their minds, I'm sure.
Right. And uh, I think I'm pretty good because I've been doing it for a while, but like the thing that you come up with based on what I'm saying is always going to be better
Yeah,
than what I could do by myself. Even, a professionally produced art piece, right? It's going to be cool and it's going to be a jumping off point and, love good art, but I like to get that out of the way too. And yeah, your custom stylized version from your imagination is going to be the best thing for you. And the person sitting next to you, there's enough similarity that you can communicate about it, right? And play a game together, but they're having a different experience.
that's right. That's
Um,
right.
and that's always kind of true, but to be able to like harness that to make a better experience for everyone is what's up. Like that's and it's in some ways it's less work, which clears you up for doing other things. Oh, I to circle back, I think maybe that's what I was saying when Dolly knocked on the door. But yeah, the rules are lighter, and that clears up other decision making processes because like I am doing a lot less in prep, and I'm actually doing more at the table in a
Yes.
lot of
Well,
circumstances
that's more fun
because
for you because now it's not taking your entire day in order to get
well,
this ready.
one that yeah, sometimes it's like right now I'm in a busy season
Right.
from a lot of different areas of my life. So yeah, the workload is lighter. Then the fifth edition game takes a lot more effort than the OSR game. But at the table, I am playing sometimes more than you guys because
Yeah.
like I'm actually considering like loading screens or something because when you roll a random encounter, it's like whoa, okay, like this is real. Like in a dungeon, it's one thing. There's like 4 or 5 things I've read it, I know. You're traveling through the wilderness, you can go in 6 directions and then another 6 directions. And then, and then it's do you have an encounter? Roll a d20, roll a d6. What are these guys feeling and thinking and experiencing right now? So the goblin's riding on the small giant snail like it's a roller coaster, drinking a bottle of wine first thing in the morning. I don't know what that was going to happen, and now I kick into gear. I didn't do that. I don't do that in prep. I do it at the table,
Yeah.
and it's conversational. Your interactions are, I establish it right away, and then what your character does to these guys affects what they would do, right? They weren't trying to, they were having a good time. They would have driven. They would have slowly cruised by you guys. But you interacted and you bought the wine off of them and they stole a crossbow from somebody.
I
It
think
was a
that's
memorable experience that I did not expect.
yeah, I agreed. And I think uh I was interviewing Marco Fossati, a DM from and writer of modules from Italy, and he was saying that it says right in the Dungeon Master's Guide, 5e Dungeon Master's Guide, the Dungeon Master is a player at the table
Mhm,
who he has additional responsibilities, but he's a player. And I
mhm.
never noticed that until he pointed that out, but it's true. Like we're all supposed to have fun with this. It's not like in the storytelling approach where like you prepare every little nuance, if if the players don't come across something and you've prepared for that, one can't help but be disappointed. So that's not a fun experience for a DM. So it's
It's
better not to
it's
burden oneself with that.
it's even worse when they do come across it and don't engage
Or
or
don't do what
care.
you thought they were going to. Right, right, right.
That's the biggest, and I think that leads to burnout. All wasted effort leads to burnout.
Yeah.
But two, there's a very popular fundamental misunderstanding of the dungeon master's role, where it's like I am a storyteller and I'm crafting an experience, and like maybe that's what's happening at some tables, and everybody loves it. But I think a lot of people come into it thinking that they're writing a novel for their friends to read, and their friends are trying to play a game and blow off steam, or be the protagonist of a story who has control over what's happening in the story.
Mhm.
So either way, that can lead to a lot of dungeon master frustration and burnout, and then this epic campaign that you had, you know, oh, the big reveals that's going to happen in 2 years never happens because 8 weeks into it, you're like, I can't, this is not
It's
fun for me at all
right.
because you forgot to make it fun for you.
Right. That's right. Yeah, you gotta allow those quiet spaces for things to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think this has been an awesome talk as usual. So,
Yeah, same time next week. We'll see what happens, how you get home with all this treasure and what's going down in Breakport, and what what is next for our intrepid heroes who don't have a
that's
name yet.
that's right. We didn't name the party.
Mhm.
Yeah, but yeah. So it's Clued, Afrid, and I forget Mike's character's name off the top of my head. I didn't
Oh,
come up
because
last
it's,
night.
I think it's Q or Z. It's impronounceable. I think that's why everyone has a
Is that
block
what it
about
is?
it.
Oh
It's
yeah, because he abbreviated
I'm
it
trying. I'm
to
looking for my books downstairs.
yeah. It's all good. All right, well,
But
get
yeah,
out to your game store, have fun, and thanks for watching the channels.
yeah. Go support things that you like so that they keep happening. Be it us or them or all of the above. Play good games. Support your people. Run some D&D at your friendly local game shop.
Yep. See you on the next one.
Thanks, everybody.